These are the 5 levels of dream entities explained, with level 1 being the most common, almost all of us have seen, and level 5 being super rare, only a select number of people get to see. Stay tuned to know whether you are one of those people. Level 1. So these are what sleep researchers call passive dream characters, or what I like to think of as the extras in your mental movie. These entities barely register as having any kind of separate existence from you. They're the people walking past you in dream crowds, the waiter who never quite looks at you, the driver in the car next to yours. What makes them level 1 is they have zero autonomy. They don't respond when you talk to them. They don't have goals or motivations. If you try to interact with one in a lucid dream, they'll often just fade out or stand there doing nothing. Some people report they're almost transparent or blurry, like your brain didn't bother rendering them fully. From a neuroscience perspective, these are probably just your brain filling in environmental details. Your prefrontal cortex is mostly offline during REM sleep, so you're getting this bare-bones simulation of reality. These entities are essentially cognitive shortcuts. Your brain knows restaurants should have other people, so it generates some vague humanoid shapes. But here's where it gets interesting. Even at this level, different people report different experiences. Some lucid dreamers say that, with practice, they can wake up these background characters by focusing on them. It's like forcing your brain to allocate more processing power to that particular simulation. Level 2. The reactive NPCs. Now we're getting somewhere. Level 2 entities actually respond to you, but they're still pretty mechanical about it. These are the dream characters that'll answer your questions, react to your actions, but in ways that feel scripted or limited. Research from places like Stanford Sleep Lab shows these entities can do some pretty impressive things. They can hold basic conversations, solve simple problems you give them, even draw pictures or come up with rhymes when asked. But they're terrible at math, like really bad. Ask a dream character to multiply 17 by 13 and watch them struggle or give you nonsense answers. What's happening here is your brain is using different neural networks to generate responses. Language centers are still partially active during REM sleep, so these characters can speak coherently. But your logical reasoning areas, those are mostly checked out, which is why dream logic feels logical in the moment but makes zero sense when you wake up. The really weird thing about level 2 entities is they seem to represent specific concepts or people from your life. You might dream about your mom, your boss, your friend. These entities will have personality traits that match the real person. They'll say things that sound like something that person would say. But talk to them long enough in a lucid dream and you start noticing the cracks. They'll repeat themselves, contradict things they said earlier, or suddenly shift personality. Psychologists like Jung would say these are symbolic representations. Your unconscious mind's way of processing your relationship with that person or what they represent to you. And honestly, that tracks with what lucid dreamers report. These entities often reveal stuff about how you actually feel about someone, stuff your conscious mind might be avoiding. And before we get to level 3, this is my first video, so if you like it, make sure you subscribe. Anyway, level 3, the chasers and nightmare entities. This is where things get legitimately creepy. Level 3 entities have agenda. They're not just reactive, they hunt, they stalk, they pursue specific goals. And almost universally across cultures, these are the things that scare us. Sleep researchers have documented this stuff extensively. In studies where people recorded their nightmares over weeks, nearly half involved some entity that was threatening physical harm. Being chased shows up in over 10% of nightmares. And the entities doing the chasing, they take surprisingly consistent forms. You've got your shadow people, dark, humanoid figures that feel malevolent. The Hat Man is probably the most famous. This tall silhouette wearing a wide-brimmed hat and sometimes a trench coat. Thousands of people across different countries have reported seeing this exact same entity during sleep paralysis or nightmares. Then there are all the cultural variants of mare. The Norse call them Mara, spirits that sit on your chest and crush the air out of you. That's literally where the word nightmare comes from. Germans call them Alp. In Cambodian folklore, it's Khmaug Sangkat. In Brazil, it's La Pisadeira. Different names, but remarkably similar behavior. They restrict your breathing, they paralyze you, they emanate pure terror. Now here's what makes these level 3. They adapt. Tell them to go away, and they might leave, but then come back in a different form. They anticipate your movements in dreams. Some lucid dreamers report that these entities will literally turn off lights to avoid being looked at directly, hide behind objects, or change their approach based on what worked before. Modern sleep science explains these as manifestations of the amygdala, your fear center, going into overdrive during certain sleep states. Your brain is basically stress testing your threat response systems, which makes sense from an evolutionary psychology angle. But it doesn't really explain why so many people see the exact same entities. And here's the part that really gets me. These entities are almost always connected to something in your waking life. Some studies call them shadow figures, representations of repressed parts of yourself or unresolved trauma. The nightmare entity chasing you might literally be some fear or problem you're running from in real life, confronted in the dream, and sometimes it transforms or disappears. Avoid it, and it keeps coming back. Level 4. The guides and teachers. So we go from things trying to kill you to things trying to help you, which is honestly a pretty big jump. Level 4 entities show up specifically to teach, guide, or provide information. And unlike the lower levels, these feel like they have their own consciousness separate from yours. Lucid dreamers talk about this all the time. You become lucid, you start exploring, and suddenly you encounter an entity that feels different. Maybe it's a wise old person, maybe it's an animal, maybe it's a being made of light, but whatever form it takes, it communicates in ways that feel profound. Sometimes it's verbal, sometimes it's telepathic. You just suddenly understand complex ideas as if they're being downloaded directly into your awareness. Sometimes it's through symbols or visions that seem to contain layers of meaning. What makes these level 4 is they demonstrate knowledge you didn't consciously have. They'll tell you things about yourself that are accurate, but that you haven't acknowledged. They'll predict events that later come true. They'll teach you skills that you can then actually perform when you wake up. Now, skeptics will say this is just your subconscious mind, the part of your brain that processes information below your conscious awareness. And yeah, that's probably part of it. Your brain picks up way more information than you consciously register. During dreams, when your ego is offline, that information can surface through these guide entities. But here's where it gets metaphysical. Practitioners of things like shamanic dreaming or Tibetan dream yoga talk about these entities as actual separate beings, spirit guides, ancestors, angels, whatever framework fits your worldview. And they claim you can develop relationships with these entities across multiple dreams, that they remember you and continue teaching you over time. Jung would call these archetypes from the collective unconscious. The wise old man, the anima, the self, universal patterns of wisdom that emerge when you're ready to receive them. And there's something to that, because these entities often appear during major life transitions when you need guidance most. Level 5. The autonomous entities. So level 5 is where things get really subjective and honestly pretty controversial. These are entities that seem to have complete autonomy, their own agenda, their own existence independent of your dreaming mind. And I'm not saying I believe these are literally separate beings, but the experiences people report with these entities are consistently weird enough that we need to take them seriously. Level 5 entities are rare. Most people never encounter them. But for those who do, especially experienced lucid dreamers or people who practice astral projection, these encounters are unmistakable. First, they're way more coherent than lower-level entities. They speak in complex, philosophically sophisticated ways. They have consistent personalities across multiple encounters. They remember previous interactions with you and reference things from past dreams. Second, they often know things they shouldn't. They'll tell you information about your life that you've never told anyone. They'll reveal hidden connections you haven't made. Sometimes, they'll give you verifiable information about the physical world that you confirm later. Third, they exist in spaces that feel separate from normal dreams. Experienced astral projectors talk about different planes or dimensions where these entities live. The astral plane is described as having its own geography, its own rules, its own inhabitants. And multiple projectors will sometimes report encountering the same entities or visiting the same locations. Now, this is where things get controversial. In esoteric traditions, these are considered actual non-physical beings. Angels, demons, spirit guides, interdimensional entities, whatever you want to call them, they exist in non-physical reality and can interact with consciousness that reaches their level. The counter-argument from materialist neuroscience is that these are elaborate constructions of your mind, possibly tapping into some collective unconscious or quantum information field. But here is what makes me uncertain about dismissing them entirely: the consistency of reports across cultures and throughout history. Ancient shamans, medieval mystics, modern lucid dreamers, they're describing encounters with entities that behave in remarkably similar ways. The Oneiroi of Greek mythology, the dream gods who lived in the underworld and delivered messages to sleepers. The spirit guides in indigenous traditions who teach and protect dreamers, and the entities themselves often make claims about their nature. They'll tell you they're separate beings. They'll describe a reality beyond the physical. They'll offer to teach you or guide you, or sometimes warn you away from certain areas of the dream world. Some of the most fascinating accounts come from people who've encountered malevolent level 5 entities. These aren't just nightmare creatures. They're intelligent, strategic, and some claim they can actually follow you back to waking reality or attach themselves to your energy. Shamanic practitioners take these seriously and have specific protocols for protection and removal. On the positive side, people report encounters with beings of immense wisdom and love, entities that seem to exist purely to help human consciousness evolve, light beings that emanate information and insight, deceased loved ones who appear with messages or comfort. The thing is, at level 5, you're dealing with entities that challenge our understanding of consciousness itself. Either consciousness can exist independent of physical brains, or our brains are capable of simulating consciousness so convincingly that it's indistinguishable from the real thing. So what do we make of all this? I think the honest answer is we don't really know. Dream entities seem to exist on a spectrum from obvious brain-generated filler all the way up to something that at least acts like independent consciousness. What we do know from research is that engaging with dream entities, especially in lucid dreams, can be therapeutic. Confronting nightmare entities can help resolve trauma. Talking to guide figures can give you more knowledge about yourself. Even just talking to random dream characters can reveal stuff about how your subconscious processes the world. The question of whether any of these entities are real in an ontological sense might be less important than what interacting with them does for us. Whether they're aspects of our own psyche or separate beings, they serve as interfaces for parts of ourselves we can't access in normal waking consciousness. Anyway, that's what I've got. Let me know in the comments if you've encountered any of these entity types. I'm especially curious about level 4 and 5 experiences, because those seem to be where things get really subjective and weird. Thanks for watching, and sweet dreams, I guess.